This is Michael Popok, Legal AF, with some analysis of the Jean Carroll civil rape case related to Donald Trump and this talk about DNA evidence on a black coat dress that she's held, Jean Carroll, since the 1990s. I want to clear up some misconceptions and tell you where we stand right now as the case goes to trial on April the 25th in Judge Lewis Kaplan's courtroom, Southern District of New York. There's been much talk about the existence of that black coat dress, mainly because Jean Carroll revealed the existence of it back in January of 2020. She said she's had it ever since that time, unlaundered, hanging in the back of a closet. She kept it because it represented a dark chapter in her life, knowing that she wore it in her allegations while she was raped in the dressing room of Bergdorf Goodman, a department store catty-corner to Trump Tower in Manhattan by Donald Trump. So there was a whole bunch of fight. I see a lot of things in the Twitterverse about, what about the dress? She's got the DNA. It's just like Monica Lewinsky and Clinton. And here's where we are, though, as this case goes to trial. Her lawyer has declared that they're not going to be using that dress and any DNA evidence related to Donald Trump. So let's get that out on the table right now. Why is that? People might be asking. First of all, they independently tested that dress. Jean Carroll's lawyers did. Robbie Kaplan, her lawyer extraordinaire, rock star lawyer here in New York, and determined that it was sort of inconclusive as to not whether it had Donald Trump's DNA on it, because there's never been a matching sample taken from Donald Trump. Put a pin in that. We'll talk about that for a minute, in just a minute. But because there were apparently multiple DNA of people on the dress. I mean, that's sort of normal. I mean, you're wearing an outfit, a suit, a dress, a jacket, a coat. You move around Manhattan, New York City. You're on a subway. You're on a bus. You're in a restaurant. You sit down. You stand up. You're accumulating DNA that, frankly, is not yours. It sounds a little sort of gross, but it's like the old black light in a room. You don't want to see what's really going on in some of your places. So it's not surprising that she had DNA from other people. That's not to be confused with something else. She doesn't have, there's no reporting that she has anything else on her coat other than other people's DNA, male and female. So, but when they tested it in order to confirm that Donald Trump's DNA was on there, which would have totally refuted his case, his defense that he never met her. She's a whack job. She's a con job. She's a liar. Nothing like that happened. I don't even know who she is. She's not my type. Remember all that testimony? Well, if his DNA is on there, it sort of kind of refutes it. Yes, it could have just been a random occurrence, but nobody believes that. So they made a demand back in 2020 to have that DNA sample taken from Donald Trump, and he refused. He totally refused. And that's when he was being represented by Alina Habba. Alina Habba's gone. Alina Habba's radioactive. You're not going to see any of Alina Habba other than on Fox News and Newsmax. She's not going to be in courtrooms anymore for Donald Trump because I'm sure he's completely lost faith in her. Not only because he got whacked with a $1 million sanction along with her in federal court in Florida related to a case he brought against Hillary Clinton that was found to be completely without merit and filed in bad faith. But she's not been doing well in any courtroom either, and really has done terribly even in places like, where you take a deposition, a question and answer under oath as part of a trial. She did a terrible job with Jean Carroll. We've seen the transcripts related to it, and everybody, the whole world can see that Alina Habba was way, way over her head and over her skis in trying to handle a case of this magnitude. With the lack of skill that she has. So Donald Trump saw it. He's like, all right, you're sidelined. Who can I pick from now? And he picks in the last 3 weeks, just before trial, Joe Tacopina, sort of a bulldog, pit bull reputation, former Bronx prosecutor, has had a reasonably successful career representing celebrities who get in trouble with the law, from rappers to athletes and the like. It's kind of a mixed bag in terms of success. A lot of his clients end up getting convicted or pleading guilty, but we'll leave that aside for a minute. Joe Tacopina brought in to, I guess, balance the power between a really great trial lawyer and Robbie Kaplan on the Jean Carroll side and, what had been Alina Habba. So Joe Tacopina comes in and makes a big deal about the DNA evidence because as part of the discovery process, which is the exchange of information prior to trial, E. Jean Carroll and her lawyers turned over most but not all of a DNA report, expert forensic report that they had prepared at their own expense, which said that there were multiple people's DNA on it. Now, there's some pages missing, I presume over privacy issues, because it may have identified some other people, but there's a fight over it. And so Joe Tacopina sent a letter to the judge, which is typical practice in the Southern District in New York. You actually file a letter before you file a motion asking the judge for permission to file the motion. It's a little complicated, but that's how we practice in New York. And in that letter, which is public, we'll show it, Joe Tacopina said, we need more discovery, another deposition of E. Jean Carroll, all about DNA. And the reason she hasn't turned over those 12 pages, Your Honor, is likely because she knows that this assault, sexual assault by Donald Trump never happened. There you go. There's the proof. It's a proof of nothing. Donald Trump never turned over his DNA, and Joe Tacopina knows it. Now he's offering, just as in a performative way in theatrics, for the press, really, not for the jury or the judge. He's offering to turn over Trump's DNA sample if she turns over the rest of the forensic report. And Robbie Kaplan's response is, we're not delaying the trial to do more discovery. This is not a DNA case. If I thought I had a DNA case, I'd be putting up DNA evidence. I'm not doing DNA evidence. And so we don't need to delay to do any more discovery related to the DNA. Now, the judge is going to have to ultimately decide on this issue. It may be an issue that goes to E. Jean Carroll's credibility because she was so public, including being interviewed on MSNBC back in 2020 and tweeting about it, that she had the dress coat that had the DNA of Donald Trump, and it's been tested, and we're waiting for the results. Now, look, that's also a sign of tremendous credibility. She was so confident, the counter argument goes, that she is telling the world that she's got the dress coat that has the DNA of Donald Trump, and all she needs is to get his DNA sample extracted, and they'll do the test. But that never happened. Donald Trump, in his own genius way with some lawyers, said it wasn't in his best interest to turn over the DNA. And in a civil case, the judge can't order it. Some people might be saying, let the judge order the DNA sample. That's not a power that the civil judge really would have. That's really in a criminal proceeding. And this is not a criminal proceeding. So that's out the door. So the question is, how is this press fight that's going on in the media between Robbie Kaplan, the lawyer for E. Jean Carroll, and Joe Tacopina, the lawyer for Trump, on the DNA dress, so to speak, how's that going to play out with the judge? So we'll see. The judge is going to ask for a full briefing, I'm sure. He's going to consider whether there needs to be new discovery. But it's also a transparent effort by Joe Tacopina, who got stuck with deposition transcripts from his client and of E. Jean Carroll that he didn't get to take or defend because he wasn't the lawyer. It's sort of like being forced to wear somebody else's clothes. So he got stuck with Alina Habba's work, and he apparently doesn't want it. Look, I've taken over cases last minute and before trial, and I'd love to go back and retake certain depositions and ask certain questions that were missed. But, most of the time, the majority of the time, you don't get to do that. You got to take the case as you find it. You got to take the depositions as you find them. So, but of course, Joe Tacopina, I want to get back in there. I want to do E. Jean Carroll myself, in deposition. I want to, whatever he's thinking, because, that's what every competitive trial lawyer wants to ultimately do. Now, he's got his own problems, Joe Tacopina, with his client, because Trump is bleating about, it's not my DNA, and she knows it's not my DNA, but he's not a credible witness. When he gave his deposition just a month or so ago, and it was revealed and disclosed to the press, and we got to read it, on one hand, he calls E. Jean Carroll a whack job, a con job, a liar, but at his own deposition, he couldn't even recognize her in a photo involving E. Jean Carroll, her celebrity husband at the time, who was a famous newscaster at a local ABC affiliate here in New York, and Donald Trump and Donald Trump's wife at the time, Ivana. And when he was shown the photo, remember, Donald Trump, and it's one of the elements of defamation in the case, said, well, one of the reasons I couldn't have raped her is because she's not my type. I'll just let that land on the table for a minute. And no, that's not a defense. But that went out the window. His even comment went out the window because they showed him the photo of E. Jean Carroll back in the 1990s, not today when she's like Trump, pushing 80, but when she was, in her late 40s and early 50s. And they showed her the picture of her next to her husband, the back of Donald Trump, obviously looking at that couple, with Ivana Trump, his first wife, next to him. And he looked at it in front of Alina Habba, the lawyer, and said, well, yeah, that's me with Marla Maples. And everybody in the room sort of stopped and paused and said, Donald Trump's going off script here and not getting the facts right. And the lawyer for Jean Carroll said, the picture you're pointing to, that picture, you think that's Marla Maples, which is a woman that he married. So in Donald Trump's wacky world, he's in a picture with both his current wife and his future wife, and they're all laughing together. That's the world that Donald Trump resides in. Until Alina Habba tried to bail him out, which she's not allowed to do and supposed to do, but it'll make for really great viewing for the jury in the video testimony when it's done in opening by the lawyer for Jean Carroll. Alina Habba yells out, "That's Carroll. That's Jean Carroll." And Trump says, "That's Carroll?" Like, he'd be like totally incredulous. "That's not Marla? No, that's Carroll." Like, at that moment, Alina Habba's like the nurse for a doddering Donald Trump. He makes a lot out of, the Joe Biden and his vim and vigor. Look at this guy in his own deposition. And that totally blows the argument that she's not my type, because he thought she was his type. She thought actually that was Marla Maples, a woman that he married. So Joe Tacopina has inherited a lot of problems in his case, including with his own client, that we'll have to see. So to summarize, we got a DNA fight that's not a DNA fight. The plaintiff, Jean Carroll, although she kept the black coat dress, sent it out for forensic testing to check for DNA. Donald Trump had originally refused 2 years ago to turn over his DNA, and the case moved on. Now at the last minute, Joe Tacopina, new lawyer for Donald Trump in the last month, looking at trial in just a month and a half, is now throwing anything at the wall to see if it'll stick, including arguing, well, I'll turn over the DNA a sample from my client, Mr. Trump, but you have to turn over the missing pages of the forensic report. And Jean Carroll's lawyer said, we don't have to do any of that because I'm not trying a DNA case. This isn't a DNA rape case. This is a civil rape case, and my client's going to testify, and she's going to testify about all those things. So we're going to see how that pans out and see if this delays the trial at all. I doubt it will, but we'll keep an eye on it. Now, if you like these kind of hot takes, we do them every day. On something that's breaking in the news at the intersection of law and politics. You can follow me on social media at MS Popok. And I co-anchor a show called Legal AF, a leading podcast on law and politics. We break it all down for you every Wednesday and Saturday on the Meidas Media Network. Michael Popok reporting.
Our blue wall stopped the red wave and election deniers got denied election. That's why we're celebrating with the new Democracy Prevails team. We've got lots of work to do, but we should all be proud that when democracy was tested, democracy prevailed. You've earned this. Don't wait. Get yours right now at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.